Good evening, Council. May I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? I have Councilors Fisher and Thompson that the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of May 1st, 2024 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Please join me in the singing of the national anthem. Thank you. Councilor, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? And not seeing any, I will now call upon Kellyanne Kenny to present a deputation requesting hourly adult rates for Doran Park Pavilion. And welcome.
Thank you. So thank you, everybody, for letting me speak this evening. I'm here to represent a group of Springwater residents, 55 plus, that started during COVID, getting together to play pickleball within the township. And you know, it was just a small group, so we could go over to the pavilion and, you know, never had to worry about anything. And as the group got bigger, it was like, okay, we need to look at maybe booking the time to be able to have it exclusively, because we end up taking all 4 courts that are in there. So last fall, we in 2023, we played indoors through renting some of the one of the schools through the board, and the fee for that is $66 plus insurance. So then when we came out last spring, I contacted the Facilities and Recreation Department to see about renting. And the cost seemed a bit excessive, but we went month to month, and, you know, each month we would verify with the group, hey, do you want to continue to pay $60 a night? Because, you know, that's what the cost is. We were under the impression that in the fall of last year that the fee bylaw was going to be revised, and then it wasn't. So I guess it's happening this September. So when I called in February to make arrangements for us to start mid-May, I was advised it would still be $60 a night. And I'm like, oh, that still seems excessive, plus the insurance. And then the young lady within the department actually sent me a copy of the bylaw. And that's when I realized at that point that there was a youth rate. And I'm like, well, that seems odd that there's a youth rate and a daily rate, but there's nothing for us adults who want to be active within our community. You know, I do know that Barrie pickleball comes up, or Barrie ball hockey comes up here, the youth group and what have you. Now, we people that do play up here, we can go down to Barrie, and most of us are part of Barrie pickleball. And we can be in a full session for the whole summer for $50. And then our insurance is covered under our registration fee. And even for our yearly membership, it's only $50. So I thought, you know, I would talk to the staff, and who have been extremely helpful in explaining the situation and how the process works and what have you. And they did look to see if there was anything that could be done without me having to come and speak to you, to see if there could be an exception made or what have you. And then they said, no, that the best bet would be come and speak to you to see about if an exception could be made until such time that the bylaw is revised to include a adult, you know, hourly rate. So that's what I'm here for tonight. So just so you know, there's 28 of us that do play on Monday nights, and we will be playing from May the 13th to the middle of October till it gets cold and we're back inside. And one of the things that I thought you might find interesting is that, you know, if we are there and if we're not using all the courts, even if we've paid for the night, we do allow other people to come on. We've even, you know, people that have come by and said, oh, but pickleball, and we've invited them in to come and play and what have you. So continue to, you know, we'll continue to do that. I've even said to the staff that if, you know, the township is trying to get pickleball going for other residents, I would be happy to coordinate with the staff to try and run that for the township and that. So, you know, it is an up and coming and very competitive little sport, and it's very addictive. So, you know, I would really like to try and do something for our group to try and make it a little bit more cost effective for us to play here than having to head back into Barrie. So, yeah, so if anybody has any questions, and I'm happy to answer them.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. And just before we do go to questions, I'll just get the official part over where we just bring it onto the floor. So I just need a mover and a seconder to receive the delegation. I have Councillor Alexander and Deputy Cabral. That the delegation from Kellyanne Kenny regarding the request for the hourly adult rate at Doran Park in the fees and charges bylaw be received. And at this time, I can open up the floor to members of council. Councillor Fisher.
And just for clarification, you're looking for the hourly rate to be frozen until?
No,
Sorry.
because right now there isn't an hourly rate
Okay.
for adults. There's only one for youth.
I see.
And then there's the daily. There isn't anything for us.
Oh,
And so when we're only going and using it for 2.5 hours, it seems a little expensive to be paying $60 for something we're using for 2.5 hours. So,
right.
you know, we would prefer to have a rate same.
Yeah.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Director Culver, is the rate, are they being charged for the full day because there's no hourly rate? Is that what is happening?
Director Culver.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, that's exactly right. It doesn't exist in the fees and charges bylaw. So unfortunately, staff doesn't have the ability to invent new designations within the bylaw. So unfortunately, we're in a place where we had to bring this to council as an interim measure prior to the fees and charges bylaw being reviewed, which we expect to do later this year.
Thank you. Councillor Garwood and then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to Director Culver. So broadening the area here, so we're not just specifically focusing on this one group and pickleball specifically, assuming that's the case then elsewhere as well, where the hourly rate doesn't exist and it would be a daily rate. Can you just confirm that just for my own information?
Director Culver.
So through you again, Mayor, that's correct. So we would be asking, I guess, on behalf of the resident or in cooperation with the resident. Sorry, I guess I'm new to the microphone thing. Sorry. That a council would be approving a rate that would be applied broadly, and when a situation arises where it's required, and on a temporary basis until the fees and charges review is completed.
Councillor Thompson and then Councillor.
Through the chair to Ms. Kenny, just a question. So your group went last year and you paid the $60 a night for the whole year, just.
We paid, so it was well over $1,000 for us.
Okay. And
Yes,
it costs you $50 a year to be part of the Barrie
yes,
group. And they've
Yeah.
got like 16 courts, I think.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, now there is an extra fee at Barrie Pickleball if you're playing indoors in the winter time. But would be the same fee schedule as what our group pays to the Simcoe Board of Education to rent an evening in the school. So we literally pay $66 from October to May, plus our insurance of $235 because we have to have insurance, which is totally fine. I agree with that. So, and again, you know, I agree with, you know, that the council, you know, we need to charge stuff. And I know that I could go and just use the pavilion and not pay the township anything, but I don't think that that's right. I think if we're using it and there should be a fee and what have you, because we're asking for it each week, right? So, and I do believe that when you look at the arenas, there is an hourly rate for adults to rent the arenas. So I think it was just an oversight when the bylaw was done.
Yeah, so just to follow on,
Counselor Thompson?
I would be in favor of making an exception for something like that. I see it warranted and helpful to our community.
I have Counselor Fisher and Deputy Cabral.
I was actually just going to echo what Councillor Thompson said. I would actually be in support of it. I think thank you for coming forward because it's something I wouldn't have thought about. Having an hourly rate, I think it encourages sport within the community. And you're absolutely right, pickleball, but many other sports are very popular. And I really think that frankly, adult sport and, you know, having people go out and use these facilities. And frankly, you touched on, you absolutely could just go and use that facility, right? But it is our facility and we do regulate it. So I think actually it's good for everyone if there is an hourly rate. So I'd really like to explore that, you know. So, and quite honestly, thank you for coming forward and talking about it because I wouldn't have known. Right? So
Thank you, Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. This actually similar thing came up at Heritage Park, the pavilion for a local group there, and they were in the same position. They were kind of renting it for the whole day, and council did see fit to provide them some relief by, I think we ended up doing a half a day at there. But I think the whole idea of paying the fee is so that you have exclusive use of the facilities. And I certainly agree that an hourly rate would be appropriate, maybe a 2-hour minimum or something like that might work, and then whatever else you need on top of it. So I'm certainly supportive of that as well.
Thank you. I'm just going to turn to Director, Culver, just for a quick minute here. Are you looking then to have staff refer this, or sorry, to have council refer this back to staff, or is there a recommendation for a rate to move forward?
So we'll obviously take council's direction, your worship, but the one concept that had been considered was because in our fees and services bylaw, fees and charges bylaw, there's a relative rate for such facilities as soccer. So using the same mathematical principle, the youth rate for the area that the resident is looking to use is, I think, $9 and something. And so the recommended rate on a relative basis would be $14.28, I think. So if council were giving that direction, then we'd be good to go with helping the resident out.
Councilor Fisher?
there. Two quick things. One, I just read an article actually recently about pickleball in neighborhoods and how it's being complained about quite a bit. So in residential areas. So I think that it's probably good for the municipality. We have some complaints within Midhurst actually about a pickleball court. So I think encouraging it to be in places like this is really good. I also like having the community use these areas. So I don't know what I'd have to do to bring forward a motion to get this. Yeah, perfect. So that's what I'd like to do.
I will just turn to Clerk Ainsworth to read a possible amendment.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Based on the discussion and information from Director Culver, I have drafted the following, that the motion now before council be amended as follows: to add that council hereby approves a temporary hourly rental rate for adult sports/activities at township outdoor pavilions of a rate of $14.28 per hour for the 2024 season, to be fully considered through the Recreation Parks and Facilities Fees and Charges consultation process.
Thank you. Councillor Moore?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Mr. Culver. How does it then affect the ice rentals? So in Grenfell, for instance, we used to rent our outdoor ice, winter ice, by the hour. So if we just do a blanket $14 an hour, is that going to be included?
Director Culver?
Thank you, Worship. So what I would recommend is actually that the fee be applied to summer use, because again, we're coming back with a fees and services, fees and charges bylaw review, which will include public consultation and be a fully formed policy for council to consider. So rather than make it applicable sort of year round at this point, it really should just be an interim measure until such time as the fees and charges bylaw is approved.
Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, and through you to Director Culver. Just with respect to this, when it's a full day, people kind of get used to that happening. Is there any kind of signage that might be able to put in place to let them know that during specific times that it is actually rented out, so that
answer that for you.
Okay. You might be able to answer it for me, but it wouldn't just be for pickleball. You see, it
No,
would
I
be
know,
for anybody
we
else who
approved
wants to
that
rent it.
one For our timing.
Right, but I'm looking for something a little bit
Oh,
more
okay.
permanent that could be there because this is long-term so that when people do come there, there's no arguing. The time's already on there and they would kind of know. I'm just, as a suggestion, I don't think there's anything there now. But it might be something that would be appropriate going forward if it's for the long term to have something in place there.
Director Culver?
So through you, Mayor, I definitely think that's something we can take under advisement. We're kind of doing a bit of a review of all of our facilities right now. And so, and we're, you know, monitoring staff capacities as well to try and make sure that we can accomplish what's expected. So depending on, I think I understand what the deputy mayor is asking for. And I think it's maybe accomplishable, but I have to kind of take it back and take it under advisement at this point and see if we can. Would that be okay?
For that. I do have an amendment that was suggested and Clerk Ainsworth did provide that it's for adult for the summer. So that has been noted in there. So that was pushed forward by Councillor Fisher, and a seconder for the amendment would be Councillor Moore. And Clerk Ainsworth, if you could read that again, please.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. To add that council hereby approves a temporary hourly rate for adult summer sports / activities at township outdoor pavilions of $14.28 per hour for the 2024 season to be fully considered through the Recreation Parks and Facilities Fees and Charges consultation process.
Council, so that's the amendment, Council. So all those in favor? And that has carried, and we will move back to the main motion as amended. So one more time, all those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for
very
coming.
much for your time, everybody.
Thank you
Have
very
a
much,
good
Doris.
evening. Thank you.
Council, at this time, we're moving on to our question period, and I will turn to Clerk Ainsworth to see if there's been any submissions received.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There have been no submissions received for this evening's meeting.
And I will turn to the gallery, and I don't see our local reporter jumping up and down. So other than that, we will now move on to our minutes. We have a mover and seconder for the approval of the council minutes, please. I have Councillor Garwood and Alexander that the minutes of council listed herein be approved as presented. We have our minutes of our special meeting of council, the planning public meeting of April 10th, 2024, minutes of our regular meeting of council of April 17th, 2024, minutes of the special meeting of council of April 17th, 2024, and finally minutes of the special meeting of council of closed session, April 17th, 2024. Councillor, are there any questions on these minutes? Not seeing any. All those in favor? And that has carried. And we will now move on to the board and committee minutes. Mover and seconder, please. I have Councillor Moore and Councillor Fisher that the minutes of the board, committees, and other organizations listed herein be received for information. We have our minutes of our Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee meeting of February 8th, 2024, and the draft minutes of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority Board of the Directory meeting of March 22nd, 2024. Are there any questions on either of these? And not seeing any. All those in favor? And that is carried. And for our action report, we have a mover and seconder for the option report regarding the salary administration policy, please. Councillor Alexander and Councillor Garwood. That the report from the manager of people, talent, payroll, and benefits regarding the draft salary administration policy dated May 1st, 2024 be received, and that the draft salary administration policy attached as Appendix A, with the exception of Section 5B, be approved as presented. Option 1, that staff hereby direct to proceed in the 2024 with the non-union benchmarking review and the costs to be funded from the tax rate stabilization reserve, or 2, that staff hereby be directed to include the cost for a non-union benchmarking review in the 2025 budget for consideration. And at this time, I'll open it up to the floor for comments and questions. Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I just would like to say that I would want to have maybe the possibility of some consideration with respect to the benchmarking piece, depending on whether it's option 1 or option 2. I'd lean a little bit more towards option 2 as it would fit in with our 2025 budget. And it would also provide opportunity, I think, for staff to seek the benchmarking people to look after the study. But my suggestion was that we might be able to partner with Lakehead University and possibly see if we can get some assistance from them in doing this, because the reality is that we're looking at our comparators and seeing where they're at. And I'm not a big fan of the consultants, and I think it might be an opportunity for us to work with the university and university students that are headed down this way in way of analytics and statistical analysis. Just a suggestion. But I'd be leaning towards that piece if it could be something that could be considered. It might not work. Lakehead might not be interested, but I think it certainly would serve to build a partnership. Lakehead's made presentation to Springwater Township Council in the past. And I'd be probably looking at option 2 so that it could be incorporated into the 2025 budget and give staff an opportunity to make the inquiries with respect to Lakehead University. Thank you.
I'll turn to CEO Schmidt or Manager DeVries for comment on that.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through to Deputy Mayor Cabral. With respect to Lakehead, yes, we could investigate to see if that is a potential option. I don't know offhand kind of what programs they have and if they would have students going through to be the who are studying compensation, but it would allow us time to speak with Lakehead to see if it is an option that we could pursue.
Anything further? I have Deputy Cabral putting forward option number 2. And is there, Deputy Cabral?
Just on that, would it be necessary to include the Lakehead University piece, or staff can look into that and see if it's something that's doable? I've got faith in staff that if it's something Lakehead can partner with us on and it makes sense and, you know, it might even save us a few dollars, that's probably a good route to take.
CEO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mayor Collin. Through you to Deputy Mayor Cabral. Absolutely, as Manager DeVries mentioned, well, if the direction is from council to do so, doesn't need to be within the direction. We understand where you're going with this. We're happy to reach out to our partners at Lakehead and see whether or not that's something they can accommodate. And we can report back to council depending on where that discussion goes.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to CEO Schmidt. If we choose option 1, then we can have the work done this year and then incorporate it into the budget, upcoming budget. If we take option 2, we're looking at the work being done 2025 and then the 2025-26 budget. So were you hoping to have this done sooner rather than later? Because one option is a year sooner than the other.
CEO Schmidt?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Moore. So Councillor Moore, maybe I can back up. So why the options are there is because, and I know that this has been some time since council's had this discussion. So within the information that was provided by the consultant, it indicated that the benchmarking review would happen after the second budget of each term of council, and hence that places us where we are today, pretty much. And so hence why staff came forward with the 2 options for council's consideration. That being said, we don't have funds in the budget this year to undertake any type of benchmarking review. So if Lakehead was interested to proceed this year, we would still need some funding from council. So option 1 would need to be considered by council because we have no funds to undertake the actual work. So it could get done this year, and we would be it would be prepared or ready for hopefully the 2025 budget, or subsequent to that, waiting and taking our opportunity to reach out to Lakehead and maybe securing a contract with them for 2025. And we could also report back to council on potential costing there.
I have Councillor Garwood and then Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just looking through the report here, so on page 2, where it does specifically state, in order to proceed with the non-union benchmarking review through assistance from a consultant. So from what I'm understanding with what's being proposed is that this becomes an initiative that is worked on through staff with a potential partnership as noted, but is there capacity for staff to take that on to have that conversation with an external source. And, I have concern with it potentially pushing it down the road. I was going to potentially recommend option number one. So I just wanted that clarification.
CEO Schmidt?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Garwood. I think, that's a discussion we would have to have with Lakehead to understand what capacity they have to undertake the work that we're looking for. Because again, I don't think the scope would be any different than if we went to a consultant versus Lakehead. So I think not knowing whether Lakehead could actually undertake this, a little bit difficult to answer that question, but the idea would be is they would still undertake the same level of scope should it be a consultant on board. So the idea here is staff's involvement the intention would be staff's involvement wouldn't be any different than if we went to a consultant and/or Lakehead. Obviously, we have to build that relationship with Lakehead, but beyond that, there wouldn't be any further staff costs.
Yeah, I have Deputy Carell and Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. The reason I didn't go with number one is because it's tax rate stabilization fund, so there was no funds really available. But I'm wondering if we still look at even option two, if there might be a way for us to reach out to Lakehead and have something come back to us with a dollar figure attached to it, that by the time it actually starts to happen, it might be into the, when it happens, that we still could incorporate that dollar figure into the 2025 budget, even though get maybe some of the work done in advance. I mean, I'm happy to have that too. I just, I'd like to see it form part of the budget as opposed to robbing Peter to pay Paul at this stage of the game. But certainly I don't expect anything to change. It's not the comprehensive compensation review that we originally had. This is a benchmarking exercise to see how we fit in with our comparators. And that's why I'm suggesting Lakehead might be in good stead to provide that type of a service and be paid for it too, but hopefully a lot less than what a consultant might charge. So I'm happy to alter it that way if that's agreeable to council, to have staff go forward with it and bring back something at some point in time with a dollar figure attached to it. And if Lakehead can do it, great. If they can't do it, then we're back at going with a consultant. So I don't know if that's something that we can alter my motion instead of option two to have them move forward and come back to us with a dollar amount.
Councillor Alexander and then Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Yeah, I think that would be kind of a prudent way to go, given that it is $25,000 to $35,000 is the projected amount for the consultant. I think giving the opportunity to someone at Lakehead, one would assume it would be quite a bit less. I could be wrong. And I think, if they have the expertise and the students there, again, as the deputy mayor pointed out, it's not the full review. It's a benchmarking exercise. It's something that a student probably could take on and at a much lesser cost while giving them, much needed experience.
Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I look at this as two pieces. So I guess first my concern is timeline. So maybe I'll pose my first question to CEO Schmidt in regards to this is coming forward now, of course. Let's say council chooses to move forward in the path as proposed by the deputy mayor. We reach out to an external partner and they either come back with a yes or a no a month down the road. Does that put us in a position to complete the benchmarking prior to budget this fall, or no?
Manager DeVries.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through to Councillor Garwood. When we conducted the 2021 comprehensive review, which was the whole, external, internal pay equity review, it took about 4 months for completion by the time we sent the information to the consultant to get the final results. So we do anticipate that we could probably complete the benchmarking exercise in a shorter time frame than that.
Thank you for that. I have Clerk Ainsworth has drafted up a motion here, but what I'm hearing from the table is it possible then to separate the benchmarking exercise from the actual consultant's portion of it and have council move forward with the benchmarking part of it, or is it's all in It's all done by the same firm. Okay, thank you for that. So at this time I will turn to Clerk Ainsworth, who's been taking notes on Deputy Cabral's motion.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Please let me know if you'd like to see any changes. So that option 2 be selected and to add, and that staff be directed to investigate a potential partnership with Lakehead University to seek their assistance in completing the benchmarking review, and that staff report back to council advising of the availability of Lakehead University before proceeding with next steps.
Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Do we have to exercise option 1 or option 2? I think I'd prefer just to provide staff direction to move forward and see what you can find out, and then you can come back and we'll be able to say, let's do it now or let's do it down the road. Because this kind of doesn't really give us that opportunity. If we're tying you to number 2, it means the money's not going to be there until 2025. And I don't want to do that if there's opportunity to move forward sooner. So could we just take the option piece out and have it go back to staff to converse with Lakehead? And if they're in a position to do it and they have a dollar amount, bring it on back, and then maybe we can get it done this year as opposed to next.
CEO Schmidt, would you then be just looking for a deferral at this point, and we can?
Through you, Mayor Colgan, that would not be my preference. My preference would be, so if what we're here tonight to do is to actually get council's approval of the salary administration policy. That's the main piece. This other piece about the benchmarking is just something that's kind of unfortunately causing a bit of a challenge here, if you will. So again, maybe to the deputy mayor's point, removing option 1 and 2 and just simply adding in a piece where staff be directed to contact or reach out to Lakehead University to see whether or not they can undertake such a study and report back with our findings.
And a seconder for that. I have Councillor Moore, and I will turn to Clerk Ainsworth for clarity on this.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So the amendment would read that option 1 and 2 be removed, and then to add, and that staff be directed to investigate a potential partnership with Lakehead University to seek their assistance in completing a benchmarking review, and that staff report back to council advising of the availability of Lakehead University before proceeding with next steps. So the effect this amendment would have is that the main motion would remain with receiving the report and approving the draft salary administration policy with the exception of 5B, and then adding the piece about Lakehead.
Any further comments or questions on that? Do you need a? Okay, so all in favor, this is on the removal of options 1 and 2 and the insertion of that second of the Lakehead University portion. So there's nothing further. All those in favor? And that has carried. We're back to our main motion as amended. So it would be that the report from the manager of people, talent, payroll, and benefits regarding the draft salary administration policy non-union dated May 1st, 2024 be received, and that the draft salary administration policy attached as Appendix A with the exception of Section 5B be approved as presented, and that staff be directed to investigate the potential partnerships with Lakehead University to seek their assistance in completing the benchmarking review, and that staff report back to council advising the availability of Lakehead University before proceeding with next steps. Not seeing anything further. All those in favor? And that has carried. We're now moving on to our action reports. May I have a mover and seconder for the action reports, please? I have Councillors Fisher and Deputy Cabral. That action report items 8.2 through 8.11 be received, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved as presented. We have 8.2, the award tender of the 2024 38 iOS supply and place hot mix asphalt. 8.3, the award and tender 2024 33 iOS aggregate hauling. 8.4, mutual drainage agreement for Floss Road 5 West. 8.5, the reallocation of capital funds. 8.6, Scarlet Line subdivision reduction of securities. 8.7, 2023 tax adjustments and supplemental taxes. 8.8, healthcare spending account for volunteer firefighters. 8.9, draft provincial planning statement, the 2024 township comments. 8.10, Bill 185, township comments. 8.11, proposed amendment for the OHA removal of listed properties from the register. So at this time, council, I'll be looking to see if there's any items that you wish to pull to have redirected. Councillor Moore,
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'd like to pull 8.10 if I could, please.
and so Deputy Cabral has asked for 8.5 and 8.11 to be pulled for redirection. And at this time, is there any comments on the remaining items?
Sorry, Mayor.
Just your microphone, yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I made an error. It's not 8.11, it's 8.9. And I think Councillor Moore asked for 8.10, correct? Yes.
So at this time, council, we will be pulling 8.5, 8.9, and 8.10. Are there any comments on any of the remaining items? Not seeing any, so that the action reports items listed 8.2 through 8.11 be received, and that, sorry, with the exception of 8.5, 8.9, and 8.10 to be dealt with separately, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved as presented. Seeing nothing further, all those in favor? And that has carried. We will now move on to 8.5. And I need a mover and seconder for this one, please. I have Deputy Cabral and Councillor Alexander, that the report from the manager of roads and fleet regarding the reallocation of capital funds dated May 1st, 2024 be received, and that the council approve the reallocation of the approved capital funds from project 2022-35 for the replacement truck number 4 in the amount of 65,000 and increase the budget amount for project 2024-108 from 15 to 25,000 for the purchase of the rotary ditching unit, and any remaining funds to project 2022-35 be returned to the original funding source previously approved in the 2024 capital budget, namely taxation. And at this time, I will turn to Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just was actually a question. When that other piece that's in the report with respect to the refurbishing of the loader came up, at that time, we were buying the second loader. We kept 3, and there was some indication that there were DC dollars that were going to be utilized as part of that transaction. And I just want to know if the DC dollars, development charge dollars, were going to be utilized for the refurbishing. And if so, do they still qualify being transferred to this truck and this rotary head? Or were the DC dollars specific to the loader that we purchased? I just know that because it was increased, I don't know how you phrase it there, CO Schmidt, I don't know what the term is. We were growing and it had to do with growth, and that's why the DC dollars applied to, it was either the refurbishing and we kept that one loader, or the DC dollars applied to the new loader that we bought. I think, do you understand where I'm coming from? I just remember that piece came out, and I just want to clarify that these dollars, if they're DC dollars, are still eligible for these products. That's all.
May I turn to CO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Maybe I'll start, and I may have to defer. My understanding, for you to the Deputy Mayor, the loader, the refurbishment of the loader is actually all funded through taxation dollars. The new loader, I believe, was had DC dollars assigned to it.
Any further questions on this, council? Not seeing any. All those in favor? And that has carried. We will now move on to 8.9. And I need a mover and seconder, please, for this. I have Councillor Moore and Fisher. That for the draft provincial planning statement, this is that the report from the Director of Planning and Development regarding the draft provincial planning statement 2024 township comments dated May 1st, 2024 be received, and that staff be authorized to submit the township comments generally outlined in the report as per the commenting deadline outlined in the Environmental Registry of Ontario. And at this time, I will turn to Councillor Deputy Cabral. Did you pull? Yes, Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. It's a couple of things in the report here, and I do realize that it's a draft report, but the piece I was most interested in was the new appeal rights for settlement area expansions. And I was hopeful that the Director of Planning might be able to just shed a bit more light, because it seemed to me prior to, it was very difficult to do that. And this is for developers, it appears that that want to be able to expand the settlement area. So it's a little bit different than what I think I've seen here at council, where council has asked for it. So could you just elaborate a bit on that, please? I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Director Herron?
Thank you, Your Worship, and to the Deputy Mayor. It's a targeted answer, but it requires a more fulsome explanation in the response. The way to read these new documents, the new act under Bill 185 and the new provincial planning statement, is the province is targeting achieving 1.5 million homes. I think what they've come to realize, no, this is me, the professional planner talking, is that the current framework with the growth plan and the plan by numbers and targeted population will not secure the province 1.5 million homes. So what they're doing is they are, number one, streamlining the planning process, the decision-making process, and then number two, streamlining their own requirements. So they're getting rid of the growth plan and they're downloading the decisions to a local level. So getting away from the province directing how growth will happen in a broad stroke through the growth plan, and allowing local municipalities to make their own decisions on how growth can occur. And here's where I get to the answer from the Deputy Mayor. The province has realized that one of the criteria to get the homes is servicing, both water, sewer servicing and sanitary servicing. So in these new documents, if you read through them and you look at servicing approval at the local level, then we will gain a lot more authority in terms of growth. In order to have more control over where growth can occur and where servicing might be more available, they are potentially providing more authority to local government to decide on settlement boundary expansions. And that's where this condition of the right of the developer to appeal. So the developer could potentially come to the municipality, say, I would like to expand. The province really doesn't want to deal with this through MZOs, as has been the case. They would prefer the decision be made at a local level. So they're putting some conditions in that the local municipality to help guide decisions on settlement expansion to get more homes that are suitably serviced, that we do local work. So we'd have to update our official plan to accommodate these changes. We would have to do a master servicing plan, which projects further out. So between 20 and 30 years or further. We would have to do a water taking study. And from those studies, create policies of where we could potentially expand in settlement areas. So it would be a local decision. Another criteria is if it's a specialty crop area, it's a no-go expansion. If it's prime agricultural, try to find another location for the settlement expansion. So basically what they're doing is they're reallocating the decision-making process to how it was pre-2012, pre-growth plan. It's a long story for a short answer. I apologize for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that answer. And yes, follow on, Deputy Cabral.
Thank you. And I do appreciate it because there's only so much space in the report. But the piece about the official plan and growth projections and the water taking, all of that, we just finished, I think, adopting our official plan just last year or the year before. And that was, that took years. I think it started before I was on council for the first term. So I'm just wondering, will there be a report coming to council with respect to, I know these policies haven't been adopted by the province yet, but that 30-day window is awfully small for the commenting piece. But will we be looking at bringing something back to council to effectively incorporate these new changes, and also to look at revamping the official plan and quite possibly the growth plan as well?
Director Herron?
Through your worship to the deputy mayor. Regardless of the new provincial planning statement, if it comes into force, and Bill 185, my assessment of the official plan update is it only projects growth to 2031. Under current growth plan requirements and current Planning Act requirements, we're required to project growth to 2051 anyway. So we were going to have to do an alteration to the current official plan, which is not yet approved yet. It's still with the county. We need to tweak it a little bit yet. It's approved locally, and the county has had discussions with us. They'd like a few tweaks. It's really an issue of staff availability to get to that. But we know that we'll have to amend it anyway. I don't anticipate it will be a major revamp from what council has just recently approved, but we will have to adopt growth policies to either suit the current legislation to 2051 or this new Bill 185 and PPS. So yes, I believe that we will be bringing a report forward at some point saying we're going to have to update the OP.
Anything further on this, council? Not seeing anything. All those in favor? And that has carried. We will now move on to 8:10. And I would have this moved by Councillor Moore and seconded by Councillor Fisher, that the report from the Director of Planning and Development regarding Provincial Bill 185, Cutting Red Tape, Build More Homes Act, 2024 Township Comments dated May 1st, 2024 be received, and that staff be authorized to submit township comments as generally outlined in the report for the province for consideration. And I will turn to Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to Director Herrick. I just wanted to say thanks so much for both reports. They were fantastic and timely, but I thought it's really important that you speak to this report in public so that people that are watching or even council understands fully what Bill 185 means to the municipality. And then in the not too near future or distant future, sorry, I think it would be worth even coming to council as a separate meeting to go over the provincial planning policy and Bill 185 too, to explain in greater detail all the nuances, because it touches on so many different areas. But if you could just for right now, give a high level Bill 185, I would really appreciate that.
Director Herron.
Thank you, Your Worship. And to Councillor Moore, the Bill 185 is somewhat of an omnibus bill. It touches upon 15 current pieces of legislation. The two main goals of the bill from my professional read of it is that the first one, of course, is to get 1.5 million homes in within the 10-year timeframe that the province is projecting. So the first level of achieving that we saw was Bill 109, Bill 108, Bill 97, Bill 23, I think it was. And really all that was geared was to streamline the local level decision-making process. Now what we're seeing is the province is looking at its own legislation to secure the 1.5 million homes and revamping it to get those decisions in a timely manner. So basically, as I mentioned before, downloading the decision-making process locally and providing guidance to local governments on how to do that. The second component to Bill 185 is what I see is that the province seeks to re-establish the province of Ontario as the economic engine of the country. And they're doing that in a number of different ways through this legislation. They're giving some authority back to the municipality in terms of development charges so that it makes us financially a little better whole again. They are waiving any requirements for post-secondary education to install residential housing, which they're including in the 1.5 million homes. That's critical because Ontario is home to more post-secondary educations than anywhere else in Canada. So it brings a very educated and creative mindset to the economy, both in terms of research. We heard this earlier at the discussion about Lakehead, and also those graduates. Hopefully they'll set up businesses and innovation in the province. And then by streamlining the permissions to get the housing growth, it creates livability and affordability. So that's critical in underlining the goals. And then there's another aspect to it. It's mentioned a number of different times throughout the document about the importance of economic development at the local level. And recently, this is a little off topic, but recently the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and I can't remember the full name of the ministry, they have reached out to find out what can they do to help rural areas develop their economic development programs. So there's an importance there. And if you look at it as a whole, the province is looking at different ways of streamlining the approvals process and different ways of strengthening the economic horsepower, for lack of a better word, in Ontario.
Thank you. Anything further? Hopefully they appoint a minister to that actual red tape soon. All right, and not seeing anything further at this time. All those in favor? And that has carried. We are now moving on to item 9, our information reports. May I have a mover and seconder to receive the information reports, please? I have Councillor Thompson and Councillor Fisher that the reports listed herein be received for information. We have our 2024 building code update, 2, the first quarter council expense report, and 3, RR 2024-001 red line revision, and ZB 2024-010 for Midhurst Heights draft plan of subdivision. Councillor, are there any of these that we wish to have pulled for redirection? Not seeing any comments on any of the 3? Not seeing any. All those in favor? And that has carried. At this time, we'll move on to our verbal reports, and I will turn to Director Aaron for our development update. Again, lots of screen time tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are a number of updates, and I'm going to read them out if you don't mind. There are updates for both Neighborhood 1, the Carson Road Midhurst Valley development area, and also Neighborhood 2, the Gill Road Midhurst Heights. I'll start with Neighborhood 1. Phase 1A mixed subdivision is continuing with occupancies and landscaping. The plan is to complete all surface works, including top course asphalt in 2024. The developer outlines that a sales program on Phase 1B Hickling lands will be launched in the second half of 2024, and building permits anticipated late 2024, early 2025. Thompson lands, the topsoil stripping and earthworks have resumed, and material is being delivered to the utility campus. A stage 2 agreement for pre-surfacing the Thompson lands is anticipated to council later in May of this year. The commissioning of the interim wastewater plant is ongoing. The schedule has the first effluent leaving the plant in late May. The tender was closed for the ultimate wastewater plant, and the Midhurst Landowners Group plan on awarding it in May this month. And finally, for the Neighborhood 1, the expansion of the water treatment plant continues with the additional reservoir and upgrades to facilitate occupancy for all development north of Carson Road. The design for improvements to Carson Road are underway currently. And for Neighborhood number 2, there are 4 items. The construction of the water treatment plant and sewage pump station continue. The underground work of the reservoir and pump station are complete. Above ground work will begin in June. Commissioning anticipated in mid to late 2025. Item 2, the contractor continues with directional drilling of the sanitary force main. Work has progressed to Doran Road along Finley Mill Road in Midhurst. This section of work is anticipated to be completed by mid-June. The contractor then anticipates moving out to Finley Mill and Snow Valley Road. The sanitary force main is scheduled to be completed by spring of 2025. The utility servicing to service the Doran Road development is beginning in May. This includes hydropole relocations, installation of gas and telecommunication lines, and of note, the new development will have fiber optic communication service. And finally, the developer is requesting a stage 1 site alteration and earthworks agreement for phases 1C and D later in May or early June for council consideration.
Thank you. Councilor, are there any questions? Thank you very much for that update. I will now turn to Deputy Cabral for our county update.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. County update. Emergency preparedness week. Emergency Preparedness Week. It's an annual campaign during the first full week of May, which we're into next week, that gives emergency management professionals an opportunity to practice emergency preparedness and increase awareness in our community that emergency preparedness starts at home with residents. Familiarizing themselves with the risks in their area, create a household emergency plan, and build an emergency kit with items that are simple and affordable. The county has developed an emergency preparedness guide that will be distributed to members of the public via county facilities. And information about emergency preparedness in Simcoe County can be found at simcoe.ca/be prepared. So once again, for those at home, simcoe.ca/be prepared. Another one that came up that was interesting, I believe, is paramedics on bikes. County of Simcoe Paramedic Services Department includes annual planning for special events each year to ensure availability of and rapid emergency medical response during large events. And to date, support has been required for approximately 6 large events and 20 smaller events each year across the region. This year, paramedic services will expand their response capacity at special events with utilization of bicycles as an additional means for rapid access to patients in large crowds. The deployment of paramedics on bicycles is an innovative strategy that will enhance the existing emergency response at public events. The other one that was quite interesting was a Simcoe senior program known as Simcoe Cycling Without Age has expanded. The Cycling Without Age program originated in Copenhagen, Denmark, and has since been implemented in Ontario, New Brunswick, Quebec, British Columbia, and the US. The county's long-term care homes adopted this concept in 2019 with the purchase of its first two trio bikes for Georgian Manor and Village and Sunset Manor through a grant presented by the New Horizons for Seniors program. The program is sponsored by the Government of Canada's New Horizons for Seniors program, and this past February, the county received notification from the federal program approving a one-time capital funding in the amount of $25,000, very generous of them, to offset the costs to purchase 4 wheelchair tandem bikes and supplies to enhance the Simcoe Cycling Without Age program. So it's been a very successful program, and it basically allows our seniors a little bit of opportunity out and get a little bit mobile and realize that they can do some things that they didn't think that they could. The other thing they highlighted at the county was appreciation and recognition for the work and efforts of their long-term care and senior staff. Simcoe County Long Care and Senior Service teams provide significant care and support to the lives of our residents who are some of the most vulnerable individuals in our community. In addition to recognizing all staff, the Long-Term Care and Senior Staff Appreciation recognizes National Doctors Day, which was today, May 1st. In addition to recognizing all staff, the Long-Term and Senior Staff Appreciation recognized once again, National Doctors Day, and it's celebrated this day because May the 1st, the date was chosen by the Canadian Medical Association in recognition of Dr. Emily Stowe, the first female physician to practice in Canada. It's also National Nursing Week coming up, May the 6th through the 12th. In 1971, the International Council of Nurses designated May 12th, the birth date of nursing pioneer and social reformer Florence Nightingale, as International Nurses Day. Nightingale was an activist, social theorist, and author who worked tirelessly towards the prevention of disease and to ensure compassionate care for the suffering and the poor. They also recognized our personal support workers through Personal Support Worker Day, and that they are the backbone of the care team, and commended them for their exceptional care and dedicated support to our seniors. So that's it, unless you have something else to add.
No, I was just gonna add that this is a very popular day. It's also our First Responders Day. So we
First
shout out
Responders
to
Day.
our local Springwater Fire Department for keeping us all safe here. So,
Sure.
and at that time, I can turn it to members of council for municipal updates. Counselor Fisher.
All right, well, guys, mine's a little bit sad, actually. Last Thursday, the Midhurst CRA decided to postpone our annual soapbox derby. Unfortunately, with a lot of consultation with staff, we felt that with the construction going on Finley Mill and Doran, which is exactly in the vicinity of where it takes place, it would become a safety issue, not only for the construction around there, but potentially for fire and EMS if they had to operate through there. So it was a decision that wasn't taken lightly, and I hope that people in the community understand. We had many interested people, but we will resume next year. And frankly, I think it's an opportunity to grow the event. And I think that I'd like to put it out to all councillors, people in your communities, if they'd like to maybe start a year early, building a car with their kids. Maybe we can just have a bigger, better event a year from now. That's the plan. So sorry to disappoint some people in the community, but and I do have to say thank you to staff. I know there was an effort to look for other locations, but nothing was really suitable, and even there were safety issues there. So I think it was a unanimous decision that we just wait and do it by the hall next year. So.
Counselor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Would just like to draw attention to the amazing Maple Syrup Festival in Elmville this past weekend, and thank all the volunteers. The Friends of the Library is an organization that does fundraising for the library, and I'm pleased to announce that they raised over $1,000 in book sales. These books were donated by the community, and the community came and purchased them. So thank you very much to the Friends. They also the Friends of the Library launched a button campaign this past week at the Maple Syrup Festival, and the buttons are in support of the Springwater Public Library. And I was very pleased that both MP Shipley and MPP Downey both wore their buttons with pride during the festival. And these buttons can be purchased at any one of our 3 branches for $5 each. And if you attend a branch and they're sold out, I have some extras, so please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Counselor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Collins. So just to steal a little bit of, not much, I swear. Our words are just so close. I just did want to do a bit of a shout out regarding the EDHS Variety Night prior to the beginning of the Maple Syrup Festival. Both Mayor Coughlin and I, we're fortunate enough to attend, but really fortunate enough to have our children involved in the music program at EDHS. It is an amazing program. The staff that run the music program are so dedicated, not only with the actual courses that are offered, but with the extracurricular activities. The talent there was amazing. They set the night off with the amazing band that just continues to get better and better. So I just wanted to do a big shout out to both the music department at EDHS as well as Huronia, because they participated as well, because it was an amazing night.
My daughter rocks a mean triangle. Let me tell you, she was, anyway, sorry. Counselor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And on the theme of maple syrup here, I wanted to congratulate the Elmville Maple Syrup Festival Planning Committee. Councillor Alexander sits on that along with myself. So the entire community came together every year for this event. I can say the pancakes sold out by middle of the afternoon at the hall. We had 30 kids helping clean up, and it was just a record year for all of those purposes. So I wanted to thank folks for braving the weather. I think it was raining sideways, and many of us up here were there and participating in the log sign competition. I'd like to congratulate the town of Penetanguishene for winning the men's log sign competition, and our very own Springwater firefighters, fire department, for winning the ladies group. So that's always a tradition at the Elmville Maple Syrup Festival. I know folks travel from all over to come on out and watch it, and even in the rain, we had a pretty good crowd there. So I wanted to congratulate everybody on that. This week is Smile Cookie Week, and that's an important one for the Elmville Food Bank. From April the 29th through May the 5th, you can purchase your Smile Cookie at the Tim Hortons in Elmville, and the proceeds go towards the food bank. So Mayor Coughlin and I were there last night decorating some cookies, and please get out there, buy your boxes of cookies and support our food bank. And the last item I wanted to note was we are 6 weeks away from the opening day of the farmers market, which is very exciting. Also terrifying at the same time. We've had a great response so far from vendors and the community in regards to the change in date and change in time. So get ready for June the 13th. We're trying to plan a great evening there from 5 to 8 p.m. in the community hall parking lot.
Anything further? I also just wanted to take an opportunity. We thank our volunteers, but I also wanted to thank our staff for braving the weather. First and foremost, assisting with near misses with unattended vehicles. Lots of people went around barricades and made up their own parking. So there's a lot that goes into that day, and I know that the community receives it very well. So thank you very much. There's nothing further at this time. We can move on now to our notices of motion, and I do have a notice of motion moved by Councillor Thompson, and second, I need a seconder for that, Councillor Fisher, and I will turn it over to Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Whereas the Anton Mills and Minnesing community signs are in need of repairs and new letters, and where as members of the Anton Mills and Minnesing Community Recreation Associations are volunteering to do the repairs, however, require supplies in order to complete the projects, that the report, be it therefore resolved that the council hereby approve a donation of the amount of 1,000 for supplies and replacement letters for the Anton Mills community sign to be funded from the council discretionary funds Ward 3, and that council hereby approve a donation in the amount of $1,000 for supplies and replacement letters for the Minnesing community sign to be funded from the council discretionary funds for Ward 3.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any questions from members of council on that? Councillor Fisher? Oh, sorry, Councillor, my apologies. I do typically go to the mover. So I will go to.
So these signs were originally purchased by the township and donated to the recreation associations. They're old signs. They've been heavily used. The money is going to go towards replacing the rotted plywood, paint to repaint the signs, and many of the letters have gone missing. Maybe some of your kids have them in their basements, but these signs are in need of an overhaul, and would appreciate the approval of these funds.
Councillor Fisher?
I just want to say I'm certainly in support of this. I think it's good for each one of our communities to utilize their discretionary funds. And I wanted to say that I think this was the intent actually of the discretionary funds, to use them individually within our communities for, things that only maybe we as ward councillors would know. So certainly I can tell you, I wouldn't have known that maybe Anton Mills needed this. So I think, thank you for bringing it forward, and I'm certainly in support of it.
Not seeing anything further, council, all in favor? And that is carried. Councillor, are there any other notices of motion this evening? Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I do have a notice of motion. I wanted actually to put it on the agenda on Wednesday, but there was an email that came out Wednesday afternoon that precluded me from doing so. Anyway, the motion reads, whereas resolution C116D-2024 served to direct staff to explore and examine several areas of concern referenced therein, and whereas the council finds it imperative and desirable to make informed decisions, and whereas the council relies on reviewing and reflecting on our staff's research, data gathering, planning, expertise, and recommendations and opinions in order to make said decisions, and whereas it would be completely premature and irresponsible to contact and engage the services of a provincial facilitator prior to staff presenting their findings, be it therefore resolved that no contact or engagement with the provincial facilitator or any other similar agent or agency shall take place until such time as staff have reported their findings to council, and the council has then directed such contact or engagement to be made. And I'm going to go one step further, Mayor Coughlin, and I'm hoping that council will indulge me. As I said, I did want to put this on the table on Wednesday and it didn't make it onto the agenda, but I'm going to ask if we might be able to suspend procedural bylaw in order to allow a vote to be taken on this. And I would also like to ask staff if they have any idea, roughly or a ballpark timeframe where the report might be made available to staff. So through you, Mayor Coughlin, to CAO Schmidt, if he could provide us some insight on that, I'd appreciate it.
So before I do go to CO Schmidt, typically we don't speak to notices of motion. So if at this time you're putting forward a motion to have the procedural bylaw waived, that would just require a majority vote at this time.
Yes, that's what we have to do then, right? Okay.
Exactly. And I'm just gonna look to the clerk to make sure that is that correct? It is correct. So a seconder in order to waive the procedural bylaw. Councillor Fisher. Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And just to advise council, the procedure bylaw does have an allowance for suspension of procedures. That section does state that all procedures contained in the procedure bylaw may be temporarily suspended by a majority vote of council by resolution, except for procedures set out by closed session, declaration of pecuniary interest, and notices of motion. However, with that stated, it is council's procedure bylaw and they may do so. I just wanted to ensure council was flagged to what the procedure bylaw currently states. The motion that I have drafted would be that council hereby temporarily suspend the requirements of section 8.46 notice of motion of the township procedure bylaw to table a motion without notice.
Thank you. So council, that is before us now. So council, all those in favor? And that is carried, and I will turn back to Deputy Cabral.
Would you like me to read it again, Mayor Coughlin?
No, I unless CAO.
I'm looking for CAO to give us some kind of a time frame.
CO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to Deputy Mayor Cabral. So Deputy Mayor Cabral, just to confirm what you're asking is the direction that council has previously provided to staff with regards to the matter with our friends to the south. You're looking for timing on when that report will be coming back with the 4 items that were staff were directed to look into, correct?
Yes.
So I believe we're looking at trying to have that in front of council at the May 15th council meeting.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna have you read it again. I'm just gonna be looking for, at this time, I would need a seconder for the motion being presented without notice by Deputy Cabral. Councillor Alexander. And back to Deputy Cabral.
Okay, I'll read it again. Whereas resolution C116D-2024 served to direct staff to explore and examine several areas of concern referenced therein. And whereas the council finds it imperative and desirable to make informed decisions, and whereas the council relies on reviewing and reflecting on our staff's research, data gathering, planning expertise, and recommendations and opinions in order to make said decisions, and whereas it would be completely premature and irresponsible to contact and engage the services of a provincial facilitator prior to staff presenting their findings, be it therefore resolved that no contact or engagement with the provincial facilitator or any other similar agent or agency shall take place until such time as staff have reported their findings to council, and the council has then directed such contact or engagement to be made. Want to speak to it?
Clerk Ainsworth? Oh, Clerk Ainsworth. would like to copy that. Thank you. Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I think it's imperative that we do get the report from staff so that we can actually formulate a position and look at the options and see exactly where we stand with respect to the items and topics that we asked staff to do research on and provide us a fulsome report on. I also noted that a neighboring municipality went through a clear process to get to the stage where they decided that it was the proper time to reach out to any facilitator. And I think we should be doing pretty much the same thing at the appropriate time when we've got our report from staff and we've had an opportunity to digest it and review it and talk about it and see where we're going to go. That if a provincial facilitator is needed at that point in time, then that's the point in time where this council should determine that we reach out to the provincial facilitator. So that's why the motion is here.
Thank you for that. And I'm just going to turn to CEO Schmidt for clarification on the provincial facilitator. Council wouldn't be reaching out to the facilitator. The facilitator reached out to yourself directly. I haven't received any communication yet. And can you just update us on what the next steps might look like? Or that any information that you were given by the facilitator, please?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So I can provide some information to members of council. The details of the conversation would have to be discussed in a closed session based on the discussion with the facilitator. So you're correct. The provincial facilitator did reach out recently to myself, which I advised members of council that they had done so. And subsequent to that, there was a informal meeting, if you will, with the provincial facilitator, virtual meeting, which I believe also my colleagues, CAO for Verberry and Oro Medonte also went through that same process. Essentially, it was just reaching out to understand whether or not the township might be interested in participating in a facilitated process. And that they have not been at that time and still today, I'm not aware, they have not been formally appointed by the minister. They have to be appointed by the minister in order for them to follow, to proceed. To my knowledge, that has not happened. And so really we kind of await anything further from the province should they wish to have this considered.
Thank you for that. Councillor Thompson?
So through the chair to CEO Schmidt, so if the province does appoint a facilitator, I think we take our marching orders from the province. Could you say, council has told me I can't talk to you?
CEO Schmidt?
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Thompson. So my apologies. I missed a very important part. The facilitate process is optional. So the municipalities are not required to participate should they not wish to. I was very clear with the facilitator that I do not have that direction at this time from council.
Thank you. Further comment, Councillor Alexander?
I would just like to say, I think it's important for us to have all the information before we decide to make the decision if we're going to use a provincial facilitator or not. I'm not for it or against it. This is all very new, well, I think to most of us, to be quite frank. And I think waiting for the staff report that outlays the options gives us more information. I feel like we've been kind of flying half blind at this since it was kind of dumped onto us. And I think, you know, having a fulsome staff report, being able to discuss that and kind of coming to the same conclusion and like where we think our direction wants to go is important prior to engaging in conversations with the provincial facilitator when we don't really know what our options are.
Councillor Fisher?
I agree. Sitting on council here, I would like to have as much information as I personally could get to represent the people I was elected to before we go into any type of discussion, and maybe if we don't go into any discussion at all. So I definitely would feel better having as much information as possible. I think this is a good decision.
Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. We have a procedure bylaw for a reason, so we can be prepared to come to the table and make informed decisions, not on the spot. That is why I did not support this, and I will not support this motion. I don't think anyone up here disagrees that we should have all of the information before we're making, as others have noted, potentially the most important decision that we make this term. But this facilitation, if it ever comes, could come 6 months from now, when we're hearing a report is coming in front of us in 2 weeks. So I think the word was used, and I could be wrong, but preemptive, I think this motion is preemptive. We are jumping the gun on something when I don't believe that it provides us with more information. I think it does the opposite. I think it removes us from the potential conversation. We have the ability to be a part of the conversation. It doesn't mean that we have to make decisions. It doesn't mean that we have to make a deal with anyone. But if we are not at the table and listening, then I don't believe that I'm doing the job that I was elected to do.
Thank you. As I've continued to state, I think that this is another attempt to prevent myself as the head of council, as the elected mayor, to be at a table with my counterparts in Oro-Medonte and in Barrie. I think this is another attempt, like I've said in the paper, like I said before, having a motion before us that says that we will not speak to the city of Barrie, it's a muzzle and it's handcuffs. The responsible thing to do is be at the table to get that information. There's information out there that we don't have. We sat in Calander's office months ago, and he said, if you don't get to the table, if you don't find a local solution, I will do it for you. He told us then, Deputy Cabral, when you speak, I listen, and I do not interrupt you.
You want me to clarify? what you
I do not.
said?
I'm
I was at the same meeting.
Deputy Cabral. Thank you. It is my desire, and it's interesting, now that our procedural bylaw is waived, we absolutely could put a reconsideration on the floor to get back to the table. But it's not my intention to put things in front of this council or to trick this council into making decisions like this. This information that you're bringing forward today is, in my opinion, irresponsible. And you and I clearly and openly disagree on many things. But as we are saying, we're elected to make decisions. I was elected as head of council to be at the table, to be getting information and to be making decisions for Springwater Township. I will not be supporting this. I think this is another way to prevent myself from being there, another attempt to put anybody else but me there. And while members of this council may not think that I am the right person to be there, our residents do. Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There isn't a table. Okay. Council directed us to go and speak to somebody whose council hasn't directed that individual to do anything. This council asked for a report from staff, and we're being pushed forward all the time until we get that report from staff. So to suggest that we can meet with anybody we want, our jurisdiction is within Springwater Township. And I'm not suggesting that we will never see a facilitator. All I'm saying is that we need to get our ducks in a row. We need to get the report from staff that we asked for as a council. That's all I'm asking for here, is provide staff the opportunity to bring forth the report that this council asked them to provide. My objective is to keep Springwater Township whole. And I heard someone say that, well, it's $8 million deal. Well, I can tell you right now, one of the proposals that came to us is worth $34 million in DCs alone. And 3.5 million minimum likely in over a year taxation. So I would simply like to call the vote. I'm not trying to tie anybody's hands. All I'm saying is, please let us wait for staff to give us the report so that we collectively as a council can review what staff is going to provide us. And then we can move forward from there. I don't want to go to a table when I don't have anything or a position. How can you do that? And that's the piece I don't understand. Let's get the information and then move forward. That's all I'm asking for, and I'd like to call the vote.
I do have a list of Fisher, Alexander, and Thompson, and I will be sending out an email to council members because I have always provided opportunity. I think moving forward, when a member of this council at this table says, call the vote, we will continue moving forward with the vote being called. I will leave this to your discretion, and I will send an email out to council tonight.
You can let them, please.
Councillor Fisher?
Just a quick comment. I constantly hear about this mythical table. I hear from residents all the time, they don't want to go to a table, right? There is no table that exists. We're in a position right now as a council, not one of us, as a council, to decide if what sort of discussions we want to be part of. But and I think the majority of people who even I represent would like to see us have as much information as we can going into that, you know. But I'm tired about hearing about this table. People don't even know if they want to negotiate or if they want to discuss this with Barry. So I'd like us to stop talking like that. Frankly, I'd like us to act as a council. There's no one person on council to bargain for us or represent us. We make decisions as a council. So I want to see this go forward. I want to see as much information as we can before we decide if we even want to go to a table, not the table, a table. So I agree with calling the vote.
Thank you. And I do have Councillor Alexander and then Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So, yeah, this is, I don't see the deputy mayor's motion about going to a table. It's certainly not about you personally, Mayor Coughlin. It's about getting the staff report that we unanimously, I believe, asked for to allow us to make informed decisions. Given that it's only a couple weeks out, again, I don't think if the provincial facilitator reaches out to CAO Schmidt, he has to say, no, we don't want to talk to you. I think he would say, my direction is to wait until the staff report has been presented to council. They can digest it and make a decision. It's not like we're not walking away from anything. We are trying to be informed before we make a decision. This is the route, and from my knowledge, that Oro-Medonte took. They had their staff report, then they decided from that report to reach out and engage with the provincial facilitator. It is the responsible way to approach this very big decision.
Councillor Thompson?
Just a comment, well, I think there is a table. And I think that's where the information is had that our staff doesn't have. They're going to do staff reports that they don't have information that is being shared on this table. And I would like to say that that our head of council was elected by an overwhelming majority of residents, and that she has my support and she has the support of the residents. I would have complete confidence in her and our CEO being at that information table, gathering information that they could actually bring back something of substance to this council for us to decide upon. So I'm not in favor of supporting this motion, and Mayor Coughlin has my complete support.
And just so I'm clear, so when a facilitator does reach out to me, my direction will be, it's a different tactic I take by listening, by gathering information. So when a facilitator who has been appointed by the minister contacts our council through me, my direction is I will talk to you. I will listen. I will talk to you after I get a staff report. To me, there's an opportunity to have that phone call or that Zoom meeting to get information, to understand what the directives are, to bring the information to council. The will of council is here. Councillor Moore has not had an opportunity to speak yet.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. As far as I know, so far, this council has not directed the conversation to happen with the facilitator. So that actually has to be a direction of council, unless I'm mistaken. So the facilitator that called actually asked, do we want the use of a facilitator? It wasn't that one has been appointed. And I am in favor, and I think everybody on council recognizes that I would prefer to have all the information from all the sources before I can make a decision. And I've publicly stated that before.
In the facilitation process, the facilitator is appointed by the minister. The facilitator answers only to the minister, not to this council, but the process is voluntary. At this point, if we are ordered to a table, that's a completely different process. This is a facilitation process. This is not an order, unless Minister Callander decides that, okay, they didn't want to go by themselves and they're trying another way to not be there. He could then come and order us to the table. So this to me is showing that this council is not willing to work with our neighboring municipalities. This to me is showing again that We don't want to be involved in the conversation. We don't want to be privy to the information that they have or the plan that's moving forward. And as stated, Oro Medonte has come up with their plan. And the idea that they're not talking with the city of Barrie about things that could impact this council, but I don't have the ability to be there and to listen and to bring information back so that we can make an informed decision. I don't have that ability. Because now I have two resolutions, one where I don't talk to the city of Barrie, and now I can't talk to the ministry. Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. What you've just said is the exact reason why we need to wait for the report from staff. And if Mr. Calandra, and I hate to say it because I think he's a very intelligent, well-meaning man, he's really done a lot of great work. And I think the Ford government is doing some great things myself. I think he would understand that as a council, we want to make an informed decision. I don't know about Councillor Thompson. He must have information that I don't. But I've been to a lot of meetings. Nothing has really changed. What we don't have is a key piece of information from our own staff. I think we owe it to ourselves and to be respectful of the task that we asked our staff to do, to wait for that report. If it's a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, I don't think that's a huge deal, but I don't think we should be going and asking for anything until we have established a position based on the information that we can garner ourselves, not the rumor mill that's out there. So I'd just like to call the vote, please.
Vote has been called. I'll turn to Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Would council like me to reread the motion? Mayor Coughlin, you may proceed with the vote.
Thank you. We have a seconder? Yes, thank you. Council, all those in favor? And that has carried. Council, at this time, and my apologies, I have never as chair waived a procedural bylaw. Is there anything I need to do to put the bylaw back on? Thank you. At this time then, is there any other notices of motion? Not seeing any items for future consideration? May I have a mover and seconder for the approval of the bylaws, please? I have Councillor Alexander and Fisher. That bylaws listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. The 2024-033 reduced load period, 2024-034, 2024 final tax levy bylaw. Are there any questions on either of these? Not seeing any. All those in favor? That has carried. May I have a mover and seconder for the confirmation bylaw, please? I have Councillor Moore and Garwood. That bylaw 2024-035 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on May 1st, 2024 listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? That has carried. And may I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn the meeting, please? Councillors Thompson and Moore, that the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 8:05 p.m. to meet again in regular meeting on May 15th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you.